Good evening, and welcome to Third Church, New York City. Let's begin by singing hymn number 83. I'll read the first verse. God made all his creatures free. Life itself is liberty. God ordained no other bands than united hearts and hands. Hymn number 83. I'll read from the Bible and correlative passages from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. This week's readings were inspired by the place of animals in God's universe. I'll read from the Holy Bible, the New Revised Standard Version, Anglicized. Genesis. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth, God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves of every kind, with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things, and wild animals of the earth of every kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind, and the cattle of every kind, and everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. Psalms. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord, my God, thou art very great. You make springs gush forth in the valleys. They flow between the hills, giving drink to every wild animal. The wild asses quench their thirst. By the streams, the birds of the air have their habitation. They sing among the branches. The trees of the Lord are watered abundantly. The cedars of Lebanon that he planted, in them the birds build their nests. The stork has its home in the fir trees. The high mountains are for the wild goats. The rocks are a refuge for the conies. You have made the moon to mark the seasons. The sun knows its time for setting. You make darkness, and it is night, when all the animals of the forest come creeping out. The young lions roar for their prey, seeking their food from God. When the sun rises, they withdraw and lie down in their dens. People go out to their work and to their labor until the evening. O Lord, how manifold are your works! In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of thy creatures. Yonder is the sea, great and wide. Creeping things innumerable are there, living things both small and great. There go the ships and Leviathan that you formed to sport in it. These all look to you to give them their food in due season. Genesis. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." Hosea. I will make for you a covenant on that day with the wild animals, the birds of the air, and the creeping things of the ground. And I will abolish the bow, the sword, and war from the land, and I will make you lie down in safety. Psalms. The Mighty One, God the Lord, speaks and summons the earth from the rising of the sun to its setting. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God shines forth. For every wild animal of the forest is mine, the cattle on 1,000 hills. I know all the birds of the air, and all that moves in the field is mine. Luke. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies? Yet not one of them is forgotten in God's sight. Isaiah. And as for all the hills that used to be hoed with a hoe, you will not go there for fear of briars and thorns. They will become a place where cattle are let loose and where sheep tread. 1 Kings. Now Elijah the Tishbite in Gilead said to Ahab, "As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, before whom I stand, there shall be neither dew nor rain these years except by my word." The word of the Lord came to him, saying, "Go from here and turn eastwards, and hide yourself by the Wadi Cherith, which is east of the Jordan. You shall drink from the wadi, and I have commanded the ravens to feed you there." So he went and did according to the word of the Lord. He went and lived by the Wadi Cherith, which is east of the Jordan. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the wadi. Proverbs. 4 things on earth are small, yet they are exceedingly wise. The ants are a people without strength, yet they provide their food in the summer. The badgers are a people without power, yet they make their homes in the rocks. The locusts have no king, yet all of them march in rank. The lizard can be grasped in the hand, yet it is found in kings' palaces. 3 things are stately in their stride. 4 are stately in their gait. The lion, which is mightiest among wild animals and does not turn back before any. The strutting rooster, the he-goat, and a king striding before his people. Go to the ant, you lazy bones. Consider its ways and be wise. Without having any chief or officer or ruler, it prepares its food in summer and gathers its sustenance in harvest. Matthew, see, I am sending you out like sheep into the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Ecclesiastes, for the fate of humans and the fate of animals is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath, and humans have no advantage over the animals, for all is vanity. All go to one place, all from the dust, and all return to dust. Who knows whether the human spirit goes upwards and the spirit of animals goes downwards into the earth? Numbers. God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men with you?" Balaam said to God, "King Balak, son of Zippor of Moab, has sent me this message. A people has come out of Egypt and has spread over the face of the earth. Now come and curse them for me. Perhaps I shall be able to fight against them and drive them out." God said to Balaam, "You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed." So Balaam rose in the morning and said to the officials of Balak, "Go to your own land, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you." So the officials of Moab rose and went to Balak and said, "Balaam refuses to come with us." Once again, Balak sent officials more numerous and more distinguished than these. They came to Balaam and said to him, "Thus says Balak, son of Zippor, do not let anything hinder you from coming to me, for I will surely do you great honor, and whatever you say to me, I will do. Come, curse these people for me." But Balaam replied to the servants of Balak, "Although Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go beyond the command of the Lord my God to do less or more. You remain here as the others did, so that I may learn what more the Lord may say to me." That night, God came to Balaam and said to him, "If the men have come to summon you, get up and go with them, but do only what I tell you to do." So Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the officials of Moab. God's anger was kindled because he was going, and the angel of the Lord took his stand in the road as his adversary. Now he was riding on the donkey, and his two servants were with him. The donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand. So the donkey turned off the road and went into the field, and Balaam struck the donkey to turn it back onto the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path between the vineyards with a wall on either side. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it scraped against the wall and scraped Balaam's foot against the wall. So he struck it again. Then the angel of the Lord went ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it lay down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he struck the donkey with his staff. Then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and it said to Balaam, "What have I done to you, that you have struck me these 3 times?" Balaam said to the donkey, "Because you have made a fool of me. I wish I had a sword in my hand. I would kill you right now." But the donkey said to Balaam, Am I not your donkey, which you have ridden all your life to this day? Have I been in the habit of treating you this way?" And he said, "No." Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed down, falling on his face. The angel of the Lord said to him, "Why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? I have come out as an adversary, because your way is perverse before me. The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If it had not turned away from me, surely I would by now have killed you and let it live." Then Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, "I have sinned, for I did not know that you were standing in the road to oppose me. Now therefore, if it is displeasing to you, I will return home." The angel of the Lord said to Balaam, "Go with the men, but speak only what I tell you to speak." So Balaam went on with the officials of Balak. Psalms. Your righteousness is like the mighty mountains. Your judgments are like the great deep. You save humans and animals alike, O Lord. John. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, the home of Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. The next day, the great crowd that had come to the festival heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem. So they took branches of palm trees and went out to meet him, shouting, "Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord, the King of Israel." Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it, as it is written, "Do not be afraid, daughter of Zion. Look, your king is coming, sitting on a donkey's colt." Isaiah. Like birds hovering overhead, so the Lord of hosts will protect Jerusalem. He will protect and deliver it. He will spare and rescue it. A shoot shall come out from the stock of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. Righteousness shall be the belt around his waist, and faithfulness the belt around his loins. The wolf shall live with the lamb. The leopard shall lie down with the kid. The calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze. Their young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put its hand on the adder's den. They will not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. O Lord, how manifold are your works! In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. And from Science and Health, with Key to the Scriptures, by Mary Baker Eddy. Animals and mortals metaphorically present the gradation of mortal thought, rising in the scale of intelligence, taking form in masculine, feminine, or neuter gender. The fowls which fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven, correspond to aspirations soaring beyond and above corporeality, to the understanding of the incorporeal and divine principle, love. Genesis 1:21. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Spirit is symbolized by strength, presence, and power, and also by holy thoughts winged with love. These angels of his presence, which have the holiest charge, abound in the spiritual atmosphere of mind and consequently reproduce their own characteristics. Their individual forms we know not, but we do know that their names are allied to God's nature, and spiritual blessings, thus typified, are the externalized yet subjective states of faith and spiritual understanding. Spirit blesses the multiplication of its own pure and perfect ideas. From the infinite elements of the one mind emanate all form, color, quality, and quantity, and these are mental, both primarily and secondarily. Their spiritual nature is discerned only through the spiritual senses. Genesis 1:24. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind." And it was so. Spirit diversifies, classifies, and individualizes all thoughts, which are as eternal as the mind conceiving them. But the intelligence, existence, and continuity of all individuality remain in God, who is the divinely creative principle thereof. Genesis 1:25. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. God creates all forms of reality. His thoughts are spiritual realities. God gives the lesser idea of himself for a link to the greater, and in return, the higher always protects the lower. The rich in spirit help the poor in one grand brotherhood, all having the same principle, or Father. And blessed is that man who seeth his brother's need and supplieth it, seeking his own in another's good. Love giveth to the least spiritual idea might, immortality, and goodness, which shine through all, as the blossom shines through the bud. All the varied expressions of God reflect health, holiness, immortality, infinite life, truth, and love. The divine mind, which made harmless the poisonous viper, which delivered men from the boiling oil, from the fiery furnace, from the jaws of the lion, can heal the sick in every age and triumph over sin and death. It crowned the demonstration of Jesus with unsurpassed power and love. Mind, joyous in strength, dwells in the realm of mind. Mind's infinite ideas run and disport themselves. In humility, they climb the heights of holiness. Moral courage is the lion of the tribe of Judah. the king of the mental realm. Free and fearless, it roams in the forest. Undisturbed, it lies in the open field or rests in green pastures beside the still waters. In the figurative transmission from the divine thought to the human, diligence, promptness, and perseverance are likened to the cattle upon 1,000 hills. They carry the baggage of stern resolve and keep pace with higher purpose. Tenderness accompanies all the might imparted by Spirit. The individuality created by God is not carnivorous, as witnessed the millennium estate pictured by Isaiah. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. Understanding the control which love held over all, Daniel felt safe in the lion's den, and Paul proved the viper to be harmless. All of God's creatures, moving in the harmony of science, are harmless, useful, indestructible. A realization of this grand verity was a source of strength to the ancient worthies. It supports Christian healing and enables its possessor to emulate the example of Jesus. And God saw that it was good. Patience is symbolized by the tireless worm, creeping over lofty summits, persevering in its intent. The serpent of God's creating is neither subtle nor poisonous, but is a wise idea, charming in its adroitness. For love's ideas are subject to the mind which forms them, the power which changeth the serpent into a staff. Genesis 1:28. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Divine love blesses its own ideas and causes them to multiply, to manifest his power. God is the life or intelligence which forms and preserves the individuality and identity of animals as well as of men. Fixing your gaze on the realities supernal, you will rise to the spiritual consciousness of being, even as the bird which has burst from the egg and preens its wings for a skyward flight. Let's pray for the congregation, first silently, then repeat together the Lord's Prayer. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Let's sing hymn number 528, and that's in the thinner gray hymnal, light gray hymnal. Lord, your mercy reaches higher than the heavens. Lord, your faithfulness is wider than the sky. Lord, your gracious judgments deeper than the earth. Show your tender care for every creature's worth. Hymn number 528. This church is a branch of the Mother Church, the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts. We hold Sunday services at 11 a.m. and Wednesday testimony meetings at 7:30 p.m. We also have services in Spanish, Sundays at 1 p.m. and Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. All our services are now held online and in person, and all are welcome. Third Church offers Sunday school classes online and in person for teens, for children and teens. These classes are held each Sunday, where students learn how much God loves them and cares for them. They also learn about the Bible characters and lessons and the healing power of truth. For more information on times and classes, please send us an email, thirdchurch@thirdchurchnyc.com. Third Church maintains a reading room on the lower level of this building. The reading room provides a quiet place for prayer and study where all are welcome. Here you may purchase books and recordings on Christian Science. The reading room also has the latest issues of the Christian Science Monitor, an award-winning international news weekly, available to read or purchase. Reading room hours are Monday through Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. Christian Science is practical, and it heals. Our meeting is now open for all to share experiences of healing and spiritual insights that prove God's ever-presence and power in their lives. If you're listening by telephone and would like to share, press star, then the number 6. Our technician will be listening for you and will unmute your line. Please speak directly into the microphone. Don't use the speakerphone. That way we can hear you a little better. If you're watching by Zoom, feel free to unmute yourself and speak.
Thank you for your readings. They were fresh and unique and helpful. There's so many ways one can appreciate them and work with them, but what stood out to me was a citation early in the Bible that the sun knows the time of its setting, I think it was. And that brought to mind an article about which I've spoken before on Wednesday night by Ivy Gwalter, who was a practitioner and teacher for many, many years in New York and Boston, and was an editor of the periodicals for a while. And the article, she wrote many, many articles. And the article to which I'm referring is called The Activity of the Christ, I think December 1957 Journal. And in the opening paragraphs, and it's a long article as they often were in those days, in the opening paragraphs, she relates an event while she was on a cruise ship, and it was dark, but the dawn was about to begin. And as she stood on the deck of this cruise liner, this ship, she witnessed the dawn and realized that this dawn happens according to law that cannot be changed. And it came to her that this could be likened to the activity of the Christ, that spiritual selfhood of Jesus, the spiritual selfhood of all. That which God knows is the Christ, brought out in this article. And she said, no matter what would be hurled against this dawn, whether it were nuclear conflagration, whether it was mesmeric control, and she gives a number of examples, which I don't come to mind at the moment. Nothing could stop this dawn. Similarly, nothing can stop the activity of the Christ in the human consciousness. And I've gone back to that article. I've known of that article for maybe 20 years now, and I've gone back to it over and over again. On the JSH website, you can listen to it, read nicely. And I find that very helpful because it takes the focus off the human, takes the focus off personal sense, off personal striving, personal attempts with all the best intentions to heal, and puts that focus on the activity of the Christ. The sun knows the hour of the setting, of its rising, and the activity of the Christ can no more be stopped or dimmed or diminished than can the omnipotence of God, omnipresence, omniscience, omniaction. And I find this kind of thinking helpful, and it dovetails with this week's lesson on the law of God, which converts the soul, an interesting juxtaposition. That soul is converted by law. Material sense is given up and eliminated for spiritual sense, etc. Your readings brought out, at least to me, the size of God, the infinite size of God, which I need to be reminded of. I worked with a practitioner for many, many years. Well, I've worked with several practitioners over the years, but this one would sometimes say to me when I would call with a problem, whether it was physical or just what we might call a psychological problem or something like that, and she'd say, you need a bigger concept of God in order to move past this, in order to let this God good revise your concepts upward, in order for the divine to coincide with the human, all of which is constantly happening. So thank you for those readings. They're a good reminder and a nice complement to this week's lesson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your readings. It's true, the subject of this week's lesson is God. And how does one approach an infinite subject? And the approach in this week's lesson is that focuses that God is a lawgiver. Our heritage, our inheritance, our spiritual inheritance is God's law. And it's been constant for all of human civilization. But it keeps changing and being expressed in new ways. It was very interesting that this week's lesson being on God talked about Christian Science being the law of God. And of course, Christian Science being the science of the Christ, or the science of mental healing, where God, mind, is the healer. And what rules can we follow to express and open the way for the activity of God's healing presence? The country is very much in turmoil over changing human law, over the decision of the judicial branch. And the polarization on the issue and the way in which the change came about is very disruptive to thought. It's appropriate and comforting to know that God is the lawgiver, and God is a loving God, and the activity of God is expressed and manifest in human affairs. And we can be calm in relying on the comforting activity of the Christ that was also in the lesson last week, that this will be expressed. Martin Luther King talked about the arc of history bending towards freedom. and that is the irresistible attraction of truth, the unstoppable, just as the dawn was unstoppable, the unstoppable activity of love, and that man is the object of love, and that the law, the only true law, is God's law, and it will be expressed. And we can be comforted and quiet in that assurance.
Last week in the Spanish service, a woman called in and gave a testimony about mosquitoes, and she had been tormented by mosquitoes all her life. And she was at an event outside, and there was a Christian Science practitioner there, and she reminded her that all of God's creatures moving in the harmony of science are harmless, useful, indestructible. And that's page 514 of the Science and Health. And then the practitioner turned and spoke to the mosquitoes and said that their business wasn't here to sting people or whatever they do. And even though the mosquitoes were present, no one at the event was stung, bitten, I don't know what you say. And I was really grateful. She was incredibly grateful because it was such a delight not to see them as her enemies. But it reminded me of a research trip that I was on with my daughter. We were in the highlands of southern Mexico interviewing families, and they were mostly native speakers of a Mayan language, different Mayan languages. And we had a guide who would translate into Spanish for me so I could do the interviews. But we would sleep in these small houses made out of mud and wattle with thatched roofs and lots of animals. And my daughter and I got bit by fleas, and we had constellations of flea bites on our arms and legs. And it was so bad we joked about it. And at one point, our guide, there wasn't any public transportation, there was no cars, it was just hiking in the mountains and through cornfields, so we had plenty of time to talk. And we had talked about the healing power of Christian Science, and at one point he'd had it, and he said, well, why don't you pray about the flea bites? And I thought, oh yeah. So I did. And I spent most of the night in prayer and came to a very similar realization that this Christian Science practitioner had seen, that all animals live harmoniously. We're all useful. We're all indestructible. And from that moment on, neither of us were bitten by fleas. And there were plenty of, it was spring, there were plenty of puppies and cats and goats that still had fleas. But we were never bitten again. And what was really curious to me, I had struggled not to scratch these bites because it made it worse. They still itched, the ones we had still itched, but we had no compulsion, no desire to scratch them. It was almost like a little bit of wind blew by and touched our skin, and it wasn't a temptation, it wasn't irritating. And soon those disappeared. Sometimes I think God has a cute sense of humor, but whatever it was, I'm grateful for the healing. I'm grateful for how it took place and how we could see a little more deeply into our relation to God, to our friends we were staying with, the families who opened their homes to us. And it brought it to a new level of sharing and spirituality. Thank you to you all for your presence, for your prayers, for your testimonies and your remarks during the service. Let's conclude by singing hymn number 271. Our God shall reign where'er the sun does his successive journeys run. His kingdom stretch from shore to shore, till moons shall wax and wane no more. Hymn number 271.